Hi, welcome back to Losing the Boomer Blues. I'll continue on now with part 4 of chapter 1 and begin reading. That's great. Whatever makes you happy. We have a garage full of stuff. You might want to consider donating some of it to Grace. Jane gave Bob a stern look as he started walking away and said, "Very funny. You know I'd never part with any of our family heirlooms." Bob turned and said, "Just joking. That would be the day. I know better, believe me." He kissed Jane on the cheek and returned to the living room. Bob and Jane had been anti-war protesters during the 60s. In her younger days, Jane had been interested in filmmaking and had taken a few classes in high school. Being the aspiring cinematographer, whenever she attended a special event, she'd borrow Lucy's father's Super 8 movie camera. One such outing was the San Francisco Peace March in April of 1967. The 6 friends, Mary, Jane, Lucy, George, Bob, and Fred, had spent that day marching from Market Street to Kezar Stadium in protest of the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War. Jane and Lucy had taken turns filming the entire march and rally. Jane had often wondered what had happened to the film. It would be interesting to watch, especially now, since it was the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love. She was sure Lucy had it stashed away somewhere in her attic. In her lifetime, many social changes had taken place down through the years, and now, 50 years after the Summer of Love, some of those freedoms were being threatened. Jane worried that the country could be in deep trouble. Recent executive actions by the President of the United States were tearing many of the victorious changes her generation struggled for during the 60s apart. The country was divided, and there was tension and anger on both sides. Sadly, there appeared to be a loss of any peace, love, and understanding so idealized and accepted in her youth. Mary arrived home, walked up the stairs, and unlocked the front door. She turned on the lights and cranked up the furnace to take the chill out of the air. Pulling the eyeglass case out of her pocket, she laid it down next to her wedding picture on the fireplace mantel. Reaching for the picture and picking it up, she softly whispered, "I miss you so much, George. 15 years ago I lost you. If only you hadn't volunteered to go to the store for me that night, you'd still be here, making me smile." George had beat the draft in the 60s by attending college. Yet, years later, a tragic accident caused by a drunk driver took his life. Mary learned quite abruptly that life isn't guaranteed, and no matter what, it's always too short. She wiped the tears from her cheeks as she placed her wedding picture back on the mantel. Reaching for the eyeglass case, she took the sunglasses out and looked at them. A warm sensation engulfed her. It was as though a spell had been cast, transporting her back in time. She put on the shades and looked into the mirror. She loved the cool retro look, but more than that, she loved the way they brought back pleasant memories. She smiled while recalling San Francisco in the late 1960s. Adjusting to life without George hadn't been easy. The sunglasses were reminding her of her youth. Somehow they created a calm feeling inside of her. She couldn't wait until the sun came back to the avenue so she could wear them outdoors. She heard her cell phone ring. Quickly tucking the sunglasses away inside the case, she walked to the living room and answered it. Her son's voice instantly put her at ease. Vince Coretti, a prominent San Francisco defense attorney, regularly called to check in on his mother. Today she shared that she had spent a pleasant day with her friends. She also admitted she'd recently been experiencing anxiety. Vincent was well aware of his mother's bouts with depression over the loss of his father. She struggled with unhappiness and loneliness for years. Living alone wasn't a problem, but at times she missed George and wished he was still alive to keep her company and hold her at night. The negative feelings of aging were troubling her as well. She just plain had the blues, the boomer blues. While talking to Vincent, Mary tried to explain. I don't know what's gotten into me lately, but I've been feeling sad and lonely. My stomach seems tied up in knots and I can't chase the blues. I made an appointment with my psychiatrist. I don't want to worry you, but I need to get past these feelings. Mom, that was a wise move. I'd worry if you didn't get help. I'll come by for a visit on the Saturday before your birthday. I'm tied up for the next few weeks, but we need to connect. Too much time has passed since we last got together. Great, Vincent. I'll make lunch for us. If it's warm enough, we can eat out on the patio and catch up. I know how busy you are with your court cases, but seeing you is so much better than just hearing your voice over the phone. I can't wait to see you. I love you, Vincent. I'll see you on Saturday, the 11th, at 1 o'clock. Mark your calendar. I love you too, Mom. Good night and sweet dreams. Mary had started visiting a local neighborhood psychiatrist, Michael Klein, shortly after the death of her husband. Dr. Klein helped her plan ahead for grief triggers. Coping with grief wasn't easy. People who loved her had convinced her that there wasn't any shame in getting help. When the holidays rolled around, Mary found it harder to escape the sorrow of the past. George's birthday was at the end of December. This only added to her feelings of loss and loneliness, leading to her depression. After a phone call with Vincent, Mary couldn't resist opening the eyeglass case one more time. She took the sunglasses out and put them on. She recalled the night that George had proposed to her in Golden Gate Park. It was a warm night in June of 1967, right before graduation. They were out for their regular evening stroll in the park. But this night, they were headed to Rainbow Falls, Mary's favorite waterfall. George kept his hand in his pocket as Mary danced around him, describing her senior prom dress. It was white chiffon with one shoulder strap and an asymmetrical neckline, with rhinestones around the empire bodice. Lucy, the seamstress of the group, had made it for her, so it was a perfect fit. She couldn't draw a reaction from him. His mind seemed to be on something else, and she had wondered why his hand was in his pocket. She locked her arm inside of his and asked, "What do you have inside there that's keeping you from holding my hand?" Coming upon Mary's favorite spot, George took his hand out of his pocket and led her to the waterfall. He got down on one knee and pulled a little black box out of his pocket. Just then, Bob, Fred, Jane, and Lucy appeared from behind the bushes and walked up singing "Got a Groovy Kind of Love," as George opened the box and asked Mary to marry him. He instantly put the ring on her finger. Mary chuckled because George hadn't even waited for her answer. He slipped it on because he knew there wasn't anything she wanted more. When their friends finished singing, the three couples walked hand in hand out of the park. George, Bob, and Fred sang "I Want to Hold Your Hand" to Mary, Jane, and Lucy as they walked up Fulton Street, holding hands and singing Beatles songs all the way home. That night Mary would never forget, never in a million years. Returning to the present, Mary smiled, realizing that the sunglasses were indeed special. Content, she tucked them away inside the case and set it on the nightstand next to her bed. The memory had put a smile on her face. Remembering George's proposal without tears had made her feel optimistic about revisiting the past. She knew George wanted her to recall pleasant memories. After all, sorrow should never outweigh joy. That's it for today. I'll end this now. Thank you for visiting. Ciao.